What do you think of when you think computer? Some of you may think back to the Apple II or the Commodore 64. Others think of your modern Windows PC, or now laptops, tablets, and phones. Well, Apple is now hoping to take that a step further with the new Vision Pro. With Apple's new headset device, dubbed a spatial computer, are they really tapping into a new frontier? So I got my hands onto a demo to see if it really was all hype, or if Apple really had pulled another iPhone. As always, it's Brennan, and welcome back to BC Labs. But before I get into my thoughts during the demo, let's just dig into a little bit what the Vision Pro is and what it's supposed to be. Apple is dubbing this a spatial computer or a device in the new realm of spatial computing. But what does that really mean? In reality, it's not all that different than the existing items in mixed reality, augmented reality, and now XR. There is the difference that Apple has been plowing ahead in the direction of building on their UI prowess on their other devices and bringing over their app suite to this device. But it's not all that different in concept than existing products, except it's only built around hand tracking. Now, I will make some small comparisons with other devices like the Quest 3, but that's only for context. This is not a comparison video. I plan to go deeper on that topic at a different time. Now, right off the bat, when you set up one of these demo appointments and you go in, Apple has really just went to the nines in terms of trying to make it a catered experience where you feel catered to, you feel like they care about you, and they want your business. I got to give them credit for that. Of course, that's not the reason someone buys a product, but it does show that they're very invested in trying to make this a success. Right off the bat, they take your face measurements using a similar process to Face ID, using an iPhone. So they scan that, they pick out what headrest and facial interface pieces that should be used for your face shape, and then they also put in Zeiss inserts, if needed, to match your prescription. So by the time you try to put this thing on, you just have to tighten it into place. Now that I'm on the topic of customization and how it's fitted to your face shape, let's talk about comfort. I'll be honest, it is heavy. I did feel like it was either resting on my forehead, like right above my eyebrows, or it would end up resting a little bit on my cheekbones, depending on how I adjusted it, which is a little frustrating because I would hope that they would have solved some of these issues that plague other devices like the Quest. At the same time, I'm not surprised. It is a heavy device. It comes in a little bit heavier than some of their competition, even with the battery removed from the headset. So, that is a consideration. However, I will say the strap material was extremely comfortable. Like the touch of the fabric and how soft and I don't even know how fitted it is. It really makes you start to forget as much as you possibly can about the heavier weight in the front. Of course, I was presented with the single strap, not the dual strap option that is included with the headset. But since that's what I experienced, I can't speak for whether the other strap relieves enough pressure for it to be as comfortable as it should be. Now, as I did mention, there are customization pieces, the inserts that are used, and it is possible to purchase them separately from what I was told if you were trying to swap back and forth between different people. Those, as well as the Zeiss inserts, are actually held in by magnets, so it's really easy to switch back and forth. And I will say that it was a much more satisfying method of attachment than the click that occurs when you snap in your Quest 3 inserts. So I think it feels very premium the way that Apple did this. But they are also pretty expensive. The Zeiss inserts are $200 a pop versus the $40 to $70 one would normally see on competing options. And as far as I know, that's your only option for sourcing them at this point. Now on to the general experience. Things like pass-through were quite excellent. In terms of quality, the worst case of what I saw out in the distance was like the best case of some of the pass-throughs you see on the Quest 3. And that's just the best example I can give. but it's almost like you're watching a really, really high resolution CCTV where you can see that there's an update rate. You can kind of see almost the slightest amount of refresh rate flicker, at least I can, but the crispness is there to kind of get away from that. So it was very surreal feeling. Now there is an immersion mode where you can twist the dial or crown on the top, similar to on the Apple Watch. And by adjusting that, you adjust how much of this ambiance or ambient environment that you can introduce into your pass-through. So you can turn it up or down and basically change the transparency on this almost like a home environment from some of the competing devices. And it's really a nice way to be able to bring in and out yourself in and out of these experiences, or bringing them partially if you're trying to kind of separate some distractions. Now, one of the big points is eye tracking. It felt extremely responsive and intuitive. Although I'm so adjusted to touching the virtual screens on my devices and navigating by that, it actually was almost like having to relearn how to use the device because I was so ingrained with the idea of touching it with my finger, and you don't have to. You just look and you pinch. You look, you pinch. You look, pinch, drag. There is also occlusive culling. I believe that would be the right term here for your hands. So it actually cuts your hands out of pass-through, even if you're in a complete immersion mode or in front of a picture or photo, and it puts your hand in front of it. It's not perfect. They could improve the smoothing and everything, but it's something you don't get to see on alternatives because it's something Apple put the time into to truly make it feel as natural as possible versus putting a fake imitation model of a hand over the display. The lenses, I'd say, are almost worse than other pancake-style lenses. There was some noticeable chromatic aberration at the edges of the lenses that could be exacerbated by the Zeiss inserts since I needed a pretty high strength myopia correction, but there was quite a bit. It kind of tinged green when you got pretty close to the edges of the lenses. So that is something to keep in mind. I don't notice the same thing on other devices, although there are other trade-offs, whether it's blurring or darkening. None of them are perfect. Even the virtual touch keyboard felt pretty good to use. It felt intuitive, and I think it also had a fallback option to use eye tracking, but it also let you touch with your fingers, so both were cool. There's also the ability to record and play back spatial video, as well as take and view spatial photos or 3D photos. I noticed the aspect ratio seemed to be pretty close to square 1:1 when taken on the Vision Pro. However, there's the option of using the iPhone 15 Pro, I believe, and maybe the Max. They actually offer a similar spatial video and photo recording. And it actually offers what looked like 9:16 or 16:9. And it was a much better experience, although I believe the 3D effect was more toned down. So I don't think either one is a perfect solution just yet. But it's just awesome that you have a way of recording memories and playing them back in a way that's a bit more immersive, even if it's a bit dystopian Minority Report-esque. I will say my least favorite part was the fact to initiate the home menu, you actually have to click the crown down. It's not a capacitive button, you click it. And it just felt immersion breaking because everything else is controlled with your eyes and your hands. And for me to have to reach up, other than for the immersive mode that you use that crown for, nothing else other than calling in the home menu requires that action. And it just takes you out of it. Now, as for actual content on the device, most of the demo was kind of a upsell for a media consumption device. It was all about the spatial video and photos, 3 or 180/360 style photos and 3D or 2D. And there was also a pitch about the Apple TV and how there's 3D content now available. And don't get me wrong, they do show you how you can put windows around your workspace where you're at and they stay in place persistently. But for what purpose? So you can have 2 or 3 TVs open, 2 or 3 different screens. For me, it felt like, at least during the demo, they didn't touch on the productivity aspect enough. And I did have a conversation about some of those features. At the moment, my understanding is there's not a Windows streaming option that's officially supported. I'm sure someone's going to get it working here quick. There is seamless Mac integration where you can just stare at your Mac screen as long as it's, I'm guessing, set up on the network with your Apple ID and everything, and it just brings it in, which is awesome. And I'm sure that's a seamless experience and just crazy. Unfortunately, that was not part of my demo. As many of my viewers probably don't know, I'm not an Apple user on the norm. I don't have a Mac, although I've considered one. I have an Android phone, Android watch, Windows PC. So I don't have that Mac integration, and I don't have any of the other devices that kind of make it a more cohesive experience. So it would have to be a pretty big sell for me to invest in something like this. So I was looking at it from the productivity standpoint, something that would kind of transcend a computer and at least allow me to rearrange my panes in 3D space, kind of like I can do now with Immersed on a different headset. But I was hoping to kind of get beyond that, a little bit more customization, a little bit more productivity focused, where these applications can run straight on the headset. I can run, like I use InShot for a lot of my videos. If I could run that straight on this device and then have it in one screen and then look over on the other side and have a script or something else, there's so much cool stuff that could be done that would gear me towards looking to purchase something like this. Now, as for my verdict on what I think about this device, it is about $3,500 base for 256 gig, $200 for every additional battery, $200 for the Zeiss inserts. So you're going to end up spending at least $3,500, and if you have bad eyes like me, you're going to quickly climb up to $3,700 or up to $4,000 if you get a bigger capacity. But at this point, until the software / apps that are available really seem fleshed out, I have trouble recommending it as a productivity suite device. I do think that there's a argument as a media consumption / second screen or many screens for your Mac. But it looks like at the moment, Apple is still going through the growing pains of growing their app library. There's a citation of a number of like over 1 million apps have been brought over from, iPad, iPhone, etc. But how many of those are productivity focused? I'm sure there are some word processors and note apps, but I need to be able to use this device right off the bat. And since I don't have a Mac, I would be kind of just waiting on apps to populate. So that's something to consider if you're going to be an early adopter. But then you have to weigh the price against one of the more expensive Mac Studio monitors, or compare it against buying a couple TVs and other things, because it could replace multiple devices. So I totally understand that there is a lot of potential value there, but only if that's the functionality you're looking for. Is at the moment, it's almost like a smartphone media consumption device, but with XR capability, spatial, capability. It has a lot of power under the hood, but at this point, I don't see it as anything but an augment for your existing devices. And for those of you that are in VR gaming space, it shouldn't even really be on your radar as a replacement for that. There have been strides to get, I believe it was either Steam VR to work with it remotely over, I think it's ALVR client. Somebody was hacking together a way of doing that, but that's on the horizon. Also, there's no controllers, so you're going to have to figure out your own solution for that. This is just not that kind of device. Although I will do some head-to-head comparisons in my Quest 3 versus Apple Vision Pro video in the future, it's just not the same exact use case. So I can't decide for you, but I do think that there's enough value there to justify it for some people. And I do think it'll keep getting better and better. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time.